Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Good morning, Namaste. Welcome to yet another edition of India First Leadership Talk. Today we have with us an exceptionally dynamic IAS officer, Shri Rohit Kumar Singh, currently serving as Secretary, Department of Consumer Affairs. He has worked extensively and provided leadership across ministries and departments. He has led some commendable government initiatives and policy interventions to make our lives better. Let us move on and know more about him and his accomplished work from the man himself. Very, very warm welcome, Shri Rohit Kumar Singh.
Thank you.
Sir, you have had an amazing journey. Please tell us something about your journey, your childhood, your schooling, various opportunities, challenges, struggle. How has it been?
So my father was in a transferable job in UP State Electricity Board. He was an engineer. And so early childhood, we would go to schools wherever he was posted. But then I was sent to a boarding school which is run by the J. Krishnamurti Foundation, which is located at the banks of River Ganga in Varanasi. It's called the Rajghat School. So from 6th to 10th, I was there. And then in 11th class, because that school was only till 10th, and 11th I was in Queen's College in Varanasi, and then I got selected for IIT because at that time it was permitted for students to take IIT exam after 11th class.
Right.
And I was at IIT BHU for 5 years. Then I went to US for graduate school, completed my master's in computer engineering and a few projects for big multinationals. And then came back to India, taught a little bit at IIT BHU. We actually set up the Department of Computer Engineering there.
Okay.
And then moved on to the IAS. So in brief, this has been my journey.
Since your father was in a transferable job and you moved on for your studies from different places and then eventually to a boarding school and subsequently to IIT BHU, how has been your journey and what kind of qualities such as adaptabilities, new cultures you have learned very early in your life?
So I think you're very right. The best lessons of moving from place to place is how quickly you adapt to new situation. And you also get a very varied experience of small city, a bigger city, a different country. So I think that has really helped me in the IAS, because if you see how Indian administrative services, one day you are in one ministry, then you are shifted to another ministry, then to a PSU. So I think that the quality to adapt quickly to the changing circumstances, that has really helped me and stood me in good stead.
And it's a very important quality even today for all those students with the kind of change scenario we are into. So one very interesting question I want to ask you. You did your master's from United States at Clarkson University, New York. And 34 years back or 35 years back, probably, it was a better part of the world. And you were also teaching there, and I can make out that you were one of the most brilliant student with the kind of accolade you received there. So how come you decided that you will actually leave that the better part of your staying and then move on to India, will get into the administrative services and get into public service domain?
So I think there were two factors behind it. One was the family. My mother has been a very strong personality and a great influence over me. So she convinced me that, I could use my experience and talent better for India and for the people of India. So I think she convinced me a great deal. And when I joined, the information technology revolution was, just beginning, and we could see the tremendous potential. And I always wondered how information technology can be used in India across sectors because at that time there was a big difference between technology where it was in the US and where it was in India. I remember when I went from here, I had also worked for a small period for 3 months in Tata Consultancy Services.
Okay.
And we used computers where the input was through punching cards. So we
Okay.
had a set of, there was no terminal to type.
Right.
And then when I went to US, I saw a different, set of computers, even running on Unix and
Okay.
IBM 370. And I thought if that technology, is possible to use in India, especially in public domain, how much difference will it make? So I think these two factors, one, my mother's influence, and the other, exploring India through this technology, that was somewhere at the back of my mind. And these two factors, convinced me to return back to India.
You very fondly spoke about your mother, and it appears that she has been one of the greatest influence in your life. So tell us a little bit more about her, and would you really call her as your role model in personal and professional life?
Oh, totally. She is she's the best role model anyone could have. In fact, all mothers are role models for their children. But I think my mother, being from a background of a conventional, family with a very hierarchical society, she continued her higher education post her marriage, did her PhD when I was born,
Oh,
and then went on to become a very accomplished academician, and she was a great expert in educational psychology. So we saw her, through in the family, we used to see her how dexterously she would manage both the home and the profession, and constantly motivating all four of us children who are now, uh, we have good careers, all of four of us. And I think she's squarely responsible as being the motivating factor. And she always inspired us to work hard, uh, never to be deterred by a defeat. And she would always say, "नहीं नहीं अब अच्छा होगा और मेहनत करो अच्छा होगा." And then the value of small savings, which I think most teachers and professors in India have this feeling. So I think many of the qualities that one should inculcate in their children, the value of savings, the value of good education, the value of hard work, the value of not getting deterred by failure. I think all of this came from my mother, and not only to me, for all four of us siblings. And I think we have learned a great lot from her. In fact, in families where women are strong and women, are the anchors, I think that is where the children do the best, is my personal feeling.
such a commendable contribution by your mother, and we definitely require stronger women for a more inclusive society to make a much better community and, of course, nation.
Right.
Now, let's talk a little bit about your current job profile. Your ministry's multimedia awareness campaign, Jago Grahak Jago, is a very unique initiative in its own space. So, to what extent do you think it has been able to meet its objectives, make all the consumers aware of their rights?
As far as consumer protection, the whole ecosystem is concerned, I think the fundamental pillar is awareness. And unless the consumers are aware about their rights, and unless they start asking questions about why MRP is not there, why expiry date is not there on this product, and why the ISI certification is not there because it is affecting my safety. So unless the consumers start asking this question, the producers, the suppliers will not be forced to do it. Of course, there is a legal framework, there is a law, but I think because the spread is so much, we have 140 crore people and lakhs and crores of businesses. So enforcement cannot work unless the client, that is the consumer, is aware. So Jago Grahak Jago campaign has been there for quite some time, and I think it has paid dividends, and people are aware and they ask questions. But recently, if you have seen, the flavor of trade has changed. There is increasingly use of e-commerce. People want the comfort of their homes. People want to click a button and the supply should come to their home. So when there was a small mom and pop store, a corner shop, and people would buy stuff from there. And if something went wrong, they would go, they had a personal equation with the person who was selling. So it was easy for them to get a refund or a change, or the guy himself would ensure quality. But with e-commerce, this whole balance has shifted. The power balance between the consumer and the seller has shifted. So we need to be more careful. We need to be more aggressive in creating awareness. We need to discipline the e-commerce companies more to address the grievance redressal. So I think awareness is very important, and it has become more important with the advent and rise of e-commerce.
E-commerce platforms, various large, hugely large aggregators.
Right.
I mean, let's not really name them, but
Right.
they have become so powerful
Right.
that the entire power equilibrium between a
Exactly.
consumer and
Right.
actually a company, and then
Right.
you are not seeing a product from your own eyes, you are not touching it.
Right.
So everything is based on the information provided by the aggregator
Right.
itself, or maybe the seller himself or
Right.
herself. So how and what kind of various cautions, what kind of various steps can be taken, which is based on a concept of that consumers are aware of their rights, they know what should be written, what should not be written.
Right.
And another thing is that India is a country of multiple languages. So we have a huge linguistic diversity.
Right.
So this Jago, Grahak Jago, is this campaign is also in different Indian languages?
Right.
Is it also in regional languages? And then, the penetration of radio or other, say, mobiles, not
Right.
necessarily smart
Right.
mobiles, other mobiles
Right.
also. Is it also on all those platforms?
Right. So let's take it
In-
one
yeah,
by one.
one by one.
So you are right. As we said, you also said that the power equilibrium is really in favor of the big e-commerce players, because consumer is alone, and these are huge. When they have billions of transactions every day. So now there are 2-3 things. One is the fairness in terms of what is being offered to the consumer has to be fair. The choice options have to be fairly provided before the consumer. I'll talk about the associated thing of reviews. Now, when you and I buy a product on an online platform, we see how it has been reviewed by other buyers. So some says 4-star, 5-star, but sometimes we don't know whether that review is genuine or fake. So now, with the help of Bureau of Indian Standards, we have developed a framework for these e-commerce platform to address the issue of fake reviews, so that the buyer, the consumer, gets an opportunity to get an honest review system. Now, the second is grievance redressal. We have something called the National Consumer Helpline, on which we get about 1 lakh complaints every month. Now, we have
Every month?
realized, yes, so we analyzed the data, and we realized that about 4 years back, the percentage of online buying complaints was 8%. But last month it rose to 50%. Almost half of my 1 lakh complaints were against these e-commerce players. So we keep telling the big ones and the small ones that you have to improve your grievance redressal. We also take punitive action if there is a violation of the act. But I think this thing will only change when the consumer is aware and he starts questioning, and his buying behavior is determined by the fairness of the platform. About the other question on languages, so on the National Consumer Helpline, we answer in 12 Indian languages, and we have only decided last week that we will add 8 more languages. So from next, say, a couple of months onwards, we will be replying in 20 Indian languages. So you are right, language is a big issue on e-commerce also.
Right, sir. AICT, that All India Council for
Ji.
Technical Education, it has developed an AI-based translation tool.
Right.
So, in case you want to even make use of this campaign, Jago Grahak Jago
Ji.
campaign, then the languages can be immediately, the content can be
Sure.
immediately translated in different Indian languages. Now, so this is a time of social media explosion.
Right.
The whole world is about what is being done on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram,
Right.
and the number of followers all these people have. And the greater the following, those people eventually become social media influencers.
Right.
So please tell us something about social media influencer trend of advertising and marketing. Brands engage content creations And then social media influencers, they endorse different products, different services.
Right.
We do not know in the back end, maybe they are paid money for it,
Right.
or they have received certain services, or there is some gift for that. So we are not really aware of. So how do we deal with this kind of social media influencer endorsement?
Okay, so you're very right. The advertising paradigm has changed with the increase in use of social media platforms. So in conventional media, whether it is print or television or similar other radio, you can make out that this is an advertisement. But you are right, when a social media influencer with 5 lakh following says this product is good, you don't know whether it has been paid for it or it is his or her honest opinion. So only last Friday, government has issued these guidelines, which is in form of a regulation for social media influencers, which has very 3 simple points. Who to disclose. So if you are a social media influencer and you are endorsing a product or a service, you have to disclose.
Okay.
And then how to disclose is, if it's a picture, then you have to say that it is paid. And if it's a video, it has to be disclosed at the beginning and in the middle of the video. If it's a live stream, then the constant ticker has to come. So the idea is for disclosing this information to the consumer, that whatever is being endorsed has been money has transacted for that endorsement. So sometimes it is not money, it's a paid holiday or a free television or a free product. So we have further modified the definition that if you have a material connection with the brand that you are endorsing, then you have to disclose that. I think the whole essence is disclosure to the consumer, so that consumer knows whether it is an unbiased review or a paid review, so that he can calibrate his buying behavior accordingly.
And sir, disclosure also a little prominently, because
Right.
sometimes you will see that it's actually a sponsored post, and in the smallest
Right,
possible
right.
font in very corner it would be written
Right.
that it's a sponsored post.
So we have taken care
Yes,
of that. That's a very
right,
good
sir.
question in our guidelines. And we have said the font size has to be the same, and the speed at which the audio is coming cannot be. If you remember, on some television channels, there would be mutual fund advertisements. They're very compressed audio, so people
Right.
cannot make out what they're
Cannot
saying.
make out, yeah.
So we have said that the speed has to be the same. So yes, you're right. We have to take care that the disclosure is very clear to the
Clear,
consumer
yes.
and legible.
I think it's a very, very important step, and
Right.
it will make our
Right.
consumers very aware of it. Now, consumers, if I may say, that we have to really catch them young. So how can schools, colleges, universities contribute to consumer awareness, their rights, consumer protection, and finally to
Right.
grievance redressal? So can we also take this whole consumer awareness campaign to a younger audience? I mean, to the audience who are at our schools or at our colleges. So
Right.
can actually, do you think, sir, something we should catch them here?
Right. Actually, we should. So what we have done is we are also asking for inclusion of this as a small part of the syllabus in their general CBSE or whatever boards they follow. Then there are some clubs which we
Okay.
call consumer clubs. Some are doing very well in Delhi, some are doing very well in other states. And in addition to that, our ministry also is responsible for standards, Bureau of Indian Standards
Right,
with
right.
us, and they are promoting standards in the schools.
Okay.
So in the schools, there are 4,000 standard clubs
Okay.
where BIS people go and tell them that why standards are important, so that the quality consciousness of the country improves, which is indirectly related to consumer protection. Because if you are not getting a quality product, you should
Okay.
start demanding that. You should start looking for that ISI mark and other things. So we have 4,000 plus standard clubs, and we have a lot of consumer clubs in various educational institutions. And by incorporating in syllabus and other activity, I think you're right. Unless we catch them young, this thing has to be ingrained into our psyche,
Right,
that
sir.
we cannot be taken for a ride just because we are a simple consumer.
And this entire thing, it's an ecosystem.
Right.
You have manufacturers, you have suppliers. Some of them are very good and very, very quality conscious,
Right.
whereas some of them are not so good and do not reveal the complete information.
Right.
So see, you have a complex job to do, because you would also like that we have a concept of ease of doing
Right,
business
right.
or ease of performing trade. In National Education Policy 2020, we call it light but tight regulations. So how do you balance, and how do your department tries to do the balancing act that consumers are also not duped and complete
Right.
information is provided, whereas at the same time suppliers, manufacturers, sellers, these aggregators, they also feel that there is actually an ease of doing business in the
Right.
country, because that is very, very imperative for our
Right,
economy.
right. So that's a very good question, and that is, I think, the toughest job that I have. Like, where do you strike the balance, and how do you strike the balance between ease of doing business? That means our laws, our rules should not become an impediment in a good business, but also we protect the interests of the consumer, so that, as I said, consumer is not taken for a ride. So we are constantly engaged with the industry and the supply side, but when we call them for discussions, we also call the consumer organizations, so that there is always a balance. I'll give you an example. The labeling on the product under legal metrology is also with our ministry. And this, the phone manufacturers came and said, sir, the size of label is becoming too big, because there are regulations from Ministry of Consumer Affairs, there are regulations from Ministry of Environment and Forest, and other regulations. So sometimes the label was becoming bigger than the pack of the phone itself.
Okay.
So we handled this problem about 6 months back. We talked to them. So now we have permitted them to use a QR code. So we said, instead of the three things, the price and what is contained in the package, like whether there's a charger or a plug or not. And third, which is very important for Atmanirbhar Bharat, is country of origin. So we said, these three things only you print on the label. For everything else, have a QR code, so that a person who's going to buying a phone obviously can scan that and can have access to that information. So this is one example of how you strike a balance between ease of doing business, but at the same time not compromising the interest of the consumer.
So you are trying to have an enabling environment
Right.
of mutual trust, transparency, and informed choices.
Right.
So tell us something about this fair digital finance. We spoke about it a little while from now, but then this with the ministry, how is it leveraging disruptive technological advancements, such as India Stack, like now we have Aadhaar, then we also have various UPI transactions. We can even use AI for making this whole ecosystem a much better one. So how do you feel that various schemes, various administrative policies, the framework, how can it be made much more efficient, much more deliverable, much more enabling by using that story of India Stack? And since you come from that kind of background and from the very inception of your academic career, so how would you think and envision it, that this kind of technological advancements be a boon, be
Right.
an enabling factor for your ministry?
So I think not only for our ministry, for the entire e-governance framework, the use of latest and upcoming technologies is very important for all the ministries. And it's upon the leader, the secretary, or who's leading this initiative. He has to take, a macro view as to which parts of his work domain by infusion of technology can be made efficient. For example, we talked of BIS standards, we talked of legal metrology, where there are weights and measures which need to be certified whether this is actually 1 kg or not. So there's a lot of credentials that are part of our system. So and for credentials you need traceability. For example, when India is exporting cotton to the Western world, they would like to know whether this cotton is of what variety. So the whole traceability thing is important, not only for the confidence of the domestic consumer, but also for export. For example, a lot of products are sold as organic.
Right.
So it says it's an organic product. But how does one know whether it's a genuine organic product or not? What is the traceability? How will we know whether fertilizer was used or not used? Whether uh, an organic ecosystem was there for the product. So for addressing traceability, we've started working on blockchain platforms, because blockchain is one platform where you cannot tamper with the transaction or with the once it's there in that database, then you can't tamper. So we are now putting, we've just started this, we're now putting the entire standards framework, the entire legal metrology framework on blockchain technology, so that for the user, whether it's a consumer or industry, the traceability is established. The other thing is we are using artificial intelligence in analytics of even the complaints that we get on the National Consumer Helpline. So we are constantly analyzing as to why this particular product is getting more complaint. Then we have about 750 companies which are directly connected to our helpline. So we seamlessly send it to them that, see, consumers are complaining a lot about this product. And also we have about 750 consumer courts, in which, as we speak, there are 5,20,000 cases pending across India. So we did a massive exercise about 2 months back, and we analyzed as to, out of these 5,20,000 cases, which are the most occurring cases with the highest frequency. And we did a little analytics and realized that 1/3 of these 5,20,000 cases, which is like 1,70,000 plus, are only pertaining to insurance. So that means there is something wrong in the way insurance is being handled in our country. So I went to my batchmate and friend who is now in the Department of Financial Services Secretary, who handles insurance. We said, let's sit together and take a good look at this, your entire insurance framework, as to why people are getting dissatisfied and coming to our consumer courts. So I'm giving these examples because using these technologies, you can quickly come to conclusions and start looking at solutions to these problems. So both in identification of the problem and provision of the solution, these technologies, especially the new ones, can be a great help.
Right, sir. And I think for having this kind of absolutely tech integrated framework, we would also require an attitudinal shift. I think
Of course.
An entire different psychological leaning for getting technology completely embedded into the framework. Because the other side also, if I want to buy a refrigerator and I start looking at a refrigerator, the moment I open any of the sites, any of the website, I'll see too many advertisements of a refrigerator. It's all right till this point, but I'm not even aware that some of them can actually be the sponsored one or the preferred one. So I think we would need a different setup. So now you were talking about organic, whether the fertilizer has been used or not used. So you have recently written a very well written article, that greenwashing stain. So would you tell us something about it? Because we are in a flat world. Whatever I do today impacts everybody, not only my cohabitants, not only the community, but also our planet Earth. So I understand that you are a very climate and sustainability conscious person. So please tell us something about it.
So you're right. I think India historically and culturally has been a society where we have been climate conscious, because we realize that our existence, जिसको प्रकृति बोलते हैं, कि प्रकृति के साथ सामंजस्य से रहना पड़ेगा. You have to be in harmony with nature, otherwise you cannot progress. And if you start ignoring prakriti or how nature or the planet Earth, then disasters like what is happening in Joshimath or what happens elsewhere will keep happening. So you have to be in close harmony with nature. Now India, gradually over last 7-8 years, has emerged as a climate change, one of the biggest leaders in this framework of how to address climate change. And Honorable Prime Minister has gone to many COP summits, and he has, in fact, in the last one, he introduced this concept of Mission Life, which is lifestyle for environment, which is mostly for us to use how to have less consumption, repair, recycle, reuse, which are always there in our culture. And he's just re-emphasizing it. So he's asking people and companies to be conscious of how we are adversely affecting environment and do not do that. What I wrote in that article was, when there are people who are well intentioned on that, some people will try and take advantage of the system. Some manufacturers, some traders will paint their products as eco-friendly, whereas they are not. They will put a green label, they will put a tree on the box as a symbol, without actually telling the consumers that how much actually eco-friendly that product is. So that phenomenon of lying in that dimension is called greenwashing.
Right.
That you are portraying something as green, whereas it is not.
Right.
So I wrote that article just to caution the consumer that do not just believe in what the company is saying, go into their track record, do some more research, like your refrigerator example. Before you buy something or before you trust something to be eco-friendly, please do some more due diligence. That was a cautioning article for the consumers.
The knowledge and information that we are getting through this conversation is truly amazing. But we will have to stop here due to time constraint. We'll resume and have another round of conversation with Shri Rohit Kumar Singh. Keep watching this space. Goodbye.